We believe you. Sorry, I just got a little interrupted there. We believe you're here for a reason. Some of you I've seen have already started your business, but some of you maybe are just tossing around the idea or had a dream of starting your own business, but maybe don't know where to start, or you've just come across some roadblocks. And you've at least had a glimmer or that feeling in your heart that you want to do something. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been attracted to this webinar. So we're glad you're here. The reason we're here is we are passionate about helping you overcome those roadblocks and to empower you to act on that spark. If you even have a little inkling or a little feeling in your heart of doing your own thing, whatever form that looks like for you, we encourage you to act on it. I like the next slide, Alicia. You've probably heard this from Mark Twain, but 20 years from now, you will not be disappointed by the things that you did do. You're gonna be disappointed by the things you didn't do. So if you are holding back on that dream, I strongly encourage you to just start. So Alicia, do you want to introduce yourself? And then I will introduce myself.
So my name is Alicia Colmar. I am a lawyer. I'm in Apex, North Carolina, in the Raleigh area. And I've been an OT for 20 years. I have a private practice where I serve schools, contracted to several charter schools. And I see children in pediatrics. I see kids in groups and individual therapy. And I did start out cash-based. I do a little bit of insurance now. I'm kind of learning that process, and I'm not sure I'm sticking with it, but I've given it a shot. And the thing that really got me started in to do my own thing was I really wanted to run some of the groups like I got to do in a charter school that I worked in part-time. So I was like this school OT. It was so awesome. All the kids knew me. I knew all the kids. And I saw how effective these groups I was doing were, and really wanted to be able to offer that to the community because there really wasn't that in my area. And so the groups were really what got me going and got me started. So I've had my practice for 5 years now, as far as my brick and mortar goes. I've been contracting to schools for 10 years now. Started out part-time and then just gradually moved to full-time with that. So it's great. I love the autonomy. I love setting my schedule. I really don't mind working weekends for some of the families. There's times that it's not like going to work when you work for yourself. So it's a really cool thing to have your own practice. So Erin, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Sure. I'm Erin Lindberg. I'm also an occupational therapist. But first and foremost, I'm a wife and a mom of 3. I've been a holistic women's health occupational therapist for about 18 years. The holistic aspect of I've been doing myofascial release for almost 20 through John Barnes. And I got into those niche areas because of my own personal experience with anxiety and women's health issues myself and having 3 children. And I've worked in multiple settings. And the last setting I was in for almost 20 years, I was in management and outpatient therapy. And I was just burnt out from all the corporate bureaucracy, whether it be from compliance or insurance. I just felt that I was so pulled away from treating the clients how I wanted to be treated and how they wanted to be treated into so much other stuff. Like I felt like I had to write novels. I had to defend myself. I wasn't valued. It didn't matter your outcomes with your clients. You just got that cost of living raise. So it didn't matter the value you brought to your clients. And whether I had an 8-week waiting list or not, I was treated the same as every other therapist. And I wanted more for myself and I wanted more for my clients. So with that being said, I kind of stumbled upon my own practice. It was always in the back of my head that I was going to start my own practice, but you know how it is. You just drag your feet and you're comfortable and you just go day by day. But then people started asking me outside of work, hey, can you treat me on the side? Because it was so hard to get into me. I usually had an 8-week waiting list. And after I was asked for about the 3rd time, I'm like, all right, maybe I should explore this. So I actually started out of the basement of my home, working full-time in my full-time job. And I was very transparent with them. They knew I had a business and I just built it alongside. I started in the basement of my home in January of 2018. My family got a little irritated with that by June. So in June, I opened my own brick and mortar, the Healing Hub, which is a holistic healing center. I have other multidisciplinary other disciplines in here, so it's a multidisciplinary clinic. We've had naturopaths and acupuncture and health coaches and brain core, which is neurofeedback, so and psychology, so multiple different disciplines housed in one place. And then I have my personal practice in there. And I decreased my hours to 32 hours and then eventually to 20, all while still working my own practice. And in my first year of practice, while working 20 to 32 hours at my job, I made 6 figures in my cash-based practice. So it can be done, and it can be done alongside working your job. And yes, I made sacrifices along the way, time sacrifices, financial sacrifices. I made sacrifices, but I knew it was just for a season of my life. I wanted to get this business going. It was an all or none. And actually in February of this year, when COVID hit, is when I went all into my practice. And then, surprise, we have a pandemic. But for some reason, I wasn't all stirred up about it. I just felt like, you know what, everything was going to be okay. And by July, I ended up bringing on 2 independent contractors, a student, and August, September, and October of this year have been my biggest months yet. So because there's a pandemic out there, don't let it scare you. People still need us, and we'll talk about that a little bit later.
Okay, so today we are going to be talking about just some of the questions that are very common. What is a cash-based practice? What does that mean? And some of the benefits. What about doctor's orders? What does it mean to have direct access? What forms do you need to get started? What does it mean to have a skilled service, OT versus coaching versus wellness? Are those things that you can offer in your practice? The difference between entities, different things like your LLC versus a sole proprietor, some things that you might have heard before. And what insurance do you need to get started? So there's a lot more questions than people have than these, but these will be the ones that we hear so very frequently, and want to give you some guidance on those today. But I did want to add one thing. We are therapists. We are not accountants. We're not attorneys. And there's some things that vary from state to state. There's some things that we can't specifically answer because they are specific to your state. But our hope tonight is that we can guide you to where to find those answers and to help you with getting started with some of the basics.
All right, so what is really a cash-based practice? And I really like to refer to this more as an out-of-network practice or an out-of-network business, out-of-network provider. If you're a therapy practice, if you're a business doing something completely different, and that's a little different. But really, it's just a contract directly between you and the client, you, the business owner, and the therapist and the client, where together you decide how you're going to proceed with therapy and payment. So you don't rely on insurance companies to create your payment system. So it's a dual relationship versus a triangular relationship. And the benefits of a cash-based practice, I just like to go over this because some people want to know why cash practice versus insurance, vice versa. Number one is cash flow. When you're in business, cash flow is king. You need to have cash moving. Cash on hand is a huge asset. So cash in now and delaying your cash out is huge. And with insurance, you may not get paid for 90 days after delivering your service. So you really don't have control. Not saying it's bad, but this is just the benefit of having a cash practice. And sometimes depending on how you have your practice set up, sometimes you have packages. So maybe you sell 6 packages at the beginning of the month. You have a lot of cash on hand that you can maybe build interest. You have asset in your bank account. Number 2, low risk and low investment. You don't need much to start a practice. Essentially, if you have enough money to pay for your business and professional insurance, you can start a practice. Very, very low budget. If you see people in their homes, you don't need a lot. Maybe a few pieces of equipment. Depending on what you do, you can start with very, very low investment. And if you invest very little and you decide it's not for you, business isn't your thing, you're not out much, but you've gained a lot. You've gained the knowledge of awesome professional skills, which will help you be more marketable in whatever you do decide to do if you don't want to do business. And not only that, but you'll have huge personal development. Starting a business is the biggest personal development journey you'll ever go on. I don't care how many books you read, but just doing it and having to be in that grind, you're going to develop and grow so much personally. Next thing is freedom. And this is really what made me get into it, is that I wanted to treat who I wanted to treat, the people that wanted me to treat them, for how long I wanted to treat them, and to earn what I wanted to earn while doing what was best for them. I didn't want to be dictated by other people anymore. I wanted the client and I to decide what was best for them. You're your own boss. You make the decisions. The victories are yours, and you make the rules. So you have so much freedom. And not only that, but there's no limit to how much you can earn. The ceiling to your income earning potential is unlimited. There's so much you can do in your business, and you can decide if you want it to be small, medium, large, how you want to grow it. The choice is yours. You get to give yourself a raise when you want a raise. Flexibility. You get to design your own lifestyle. Work when and how you want. If you want to work virtually, traveling around the world, that's your choice. You get to decide that. And there is no structure but the structure you create, which can be a con too if you're not very disciplined person. And then added accountability. You can provide more investment and accountability to ensure that your clients complete the program and get the results they're seeking. When you are your brand, you want to make sure that you are delivering and that they're following through so they get those the results that you claim that you can help them with. And you know, a lot of people will cancel or no-show or will quit a program because they're embarrassed that they didn't do what they were supposed to. So the more that we can cheer them on and remind them of what it looks like to not get the results that they want, why they were there in the first place, is super, super helpful. And when you have that relationship with the client, having your own practice, it's a lot easier to do. Added value, you become a better therapist. You become a better clinician because, again, you're your brand and you're going to ensure you deliver the best service. And then competitive edge. I don't know about you, but I worked in corporate for a long time, and to get anything accomplished was impossible. There was so many hoops to jump through. There was never a marketing budget. So even if you did develop a new program, you couldn't tell anyone about it because there was no marketing dollars. So you have unlimited ability to market how you want and tell whoever you want about your services. And not only that, but ask your clients to help to tell their stories about your services as well. So, so those are the benefits that I see of a cash practice.
Absolutely. It really makes life, having your own business makes life a lot more fun, but especially cash because it does, you get to do what you want. So one of the things that a lot of people ask is, do you need a referral from a doctor to serve clients? And the absolute first thing you need to do is check your Practice Act, because it varies from state to state. And a lot of states don't explicitly say whether you need a doctor's order or not to get started. Some might say that it's okay to get started with the evaluation, but you might need a assigned plan of care. It really varies a lot from state to state. The ones that don't say explicitly, people have this big question mark, like, what do we do about that? And oftentimes people will contact the boards, and the boards will give this vague response. Well, you know, they can only give you the response that the Practice Act is going to give you. And so they don't always give you an answer. Here in North Carolina, I'm kind of lucky because they don't explicitly say that we need it. Personally, I would have just assumed that means I don't if they're not saying I do. You know, I'm not an attorney, so I can't tell you that, but that's how I interpret that. But they do put it on their frequently asked questions to say that you do not need that. So they do answer that question, but some states won't. One good resource if you are an AOTA member that you can look up is there is a document. Now it's from August of last year, but it does explicitly, it has all the states listed out. It's a real quick way to go look that up. So you can see if it says no referral requirements, then you know there's no referral requirements, but some of them do. So you really need to know that if you're going to need to get that or not. So look that up. But it's also important to know that it might be required by your client's insurance, and they may be seeking reimbursement from their out-of-network benefits if you have a cash practice, and so, or out-of-network practice. So you might need to make them aware of this, especially if you're going to give them an insurance receipt, which we call a super bill. I have no idea how it got that name, by the way, but that's what a super bill is. And there might be some precautions or some diagnoses that you want to make sure the physician is aware. So you might want to get a referral from the doctor. If there's some guidance or just to make them aware that if you're going to be doing something such as modalities, it might be a good idea to make sure the doctor's aware that you're doing some of these things. But on another note, it's really good for marketing. Lots of times doctors can't give referrals to practices that don't take insurance because of whatever their insurance contracts are. But it doesn't mean you can't still increase your awareness. If you have, especially have a niche, there might be times that they can still mention your name and you can get the word out. So just by connecting with the physician's office, by sending a referral request can really help with just increasing your awareness with other people. And people that work at doctor's offices aren't always necessarily looking for services for themselves in insurance, and so even the people that work there could be people that we're marketing to by sending them something. So,
and another note with this, sometimes we need to get over that need for an MD referral too, even though you don't have direct access. It's time for us to create a presence of authority in our field. We should be known as the ones for musculoskeletal disorders, or, we know our area of the body and better than the physicians do. So that doesn't mean we aren't primary care therapists and we can triage out. So if we can market ourselves that way, that, I am the person known for this, come see me. And if you need a doctor's order, then you send out for one. If they don't give it to you, well, then you just need to pass them on. But I sometimes think we depend on doctors. Like, we can't market ourselves. We spend so much time talking to doctors, which we just need to talk to the people and let the need for a referral be the second step.
Well said. And I think as a consumer, that's what a lot of us really want. We don't want to have to take this extra step to get a doctor's order if we don't have to. This is just a sample that we'll be sharing a sample of this with you if you want it in Word document that you can amend for yourself if you'd like it. But this is basically what I send. It's very easy with an e-fax to send this to the doctor. I usually put my treatment diagnosis in there, so that just gives me a little extra coverage of that, so that it's officially on record that it's a diagnosis because they sign it. And that way, for insurance purposes, if I do give a super bill to my clients, then they have something that's already in place that has their diagnosis, and it just makes me feel better about putting that on their forms.
And on the flip side of this, sometimes it's nice to send the doctors something on the back end saying, you know what, I saw this patient of yours. Thank you. These are the results we got. Because the more that they can see how you helped their client, they're more apt that they're going to refer more people to you as well.
Mm-hmm. That's a great point. Okay. So some basic forms that you're going to need to get started. So even if you just have this one client that you've already got a full-time job, you've got one person asking, hey, can you treat me on the side? And it's something that you can do without causing conflicts with your business or your employer. These are some of the things that you're going to need, the very basics to get started. Informed consent is absolutely imperative. This is explaining the risks and benefits of your therapy. What are some of the things that they might need to be aware to help them make progress. And the fact that they may not have therapy might limit their ability to make progress if they're not accessing it, or if they don't stick with it. It's really supposed to be an ongoing process. So informed consent, as things change or you add new modalities or something, it's something you want to put in your documentation. But there should be a form that they sign that says, yes, I give you permission to provide therapy to me or my child. On a side, if you are a pediatric therapist and you have a child that might be in foster care, you need to make sure that you have divorced parents, that you are getting permission from the person who has the legal authority to give that permission. So in some contentious situations, I worked in the schools with a family once, for instance, that had the dad had, I think, educational rights and the mom had healthcare rights. And so the dad could not, even though he's the dad, could not give me legal permission to work with his child. I would have to get it from the mother. So, there's things like that with divorce decrees that could be important to know and ask your clients and your intake forms on their situation. So, and same with, foster care, not in North Carolina, for instance, foster parents do not automatically have the right to provide consent. They have to get that permission from the state and, have to get a document from them and stuff. So you need to make sure you're asking those kind of questions and getting it from the right person in pediatrics, especially. So it's also important that you have a HIPAA privacy practices form. This is what says how you are handling private information. There's some ambiguity if you look at other cash-based programs and people who talk about it. There's some ambiguity as far as whether you are a HIPAA-covered entity if you are a cash-based practice. And it really depends on if you're all paper. If you have all your paper, everything's filled out through paper with your clients, and you're never transmitting electronic, documentation. It's not sending anything through the internet, whether it's e-faxes or documentation to your clients, and then maybe you're not. But for the most part, it's best to assume that you are. Anytime you are submitting anything electronically, then you are considered a HIPAA entity if it's protected health information. And so you need to have something that explains how you handle that information. And in general, also, it's really the standard of practice. And it's important to understand that that's what our clients are expecting of us. They're expecting us to maintain this level of privacy of their information. And so we need to explain to them that we're doing that. And a lot of states actually have more restrictive laws than HIPAA as far as privacy goes. And certainly under HIPAA, we're all covered by that privacy rule. There's two rules, the security one and the privacy one. And we have to keep all their information confidential. For this form, there is a way to get that on the CMS website, the Center for Medicare something or other. I will put the link in the chat box for you guys. And so there's one that's a sample. It's in Word form that you can download and modify for yourself. There's also a little guide that I will post in there for you guys that has the question on whether you are a HIPAA covered entity, which is basically a couple of questions that says, okay, do you submit anything electronic? And then they have like this rule that says what that means exactly, and then it's really confusing. So essentially just assume that you are a HIPAA entity and that you need that form.
Yes, pretty much everyone needs the privacy practice. The security is a little different. That's if you're transmitting claims through clearinghouses, so that's a little gray, but I would just assume everyone, like Alicia said, you need the privacy practice for sure. And then another one on informed consent is when you go into business and you start treating clients, you're going to want to share their results. So I just recommend right off the bat is have them consent to use their words, to use their testimonials, to use their phrases, photos too, if you want, because then you have that right up front to use that as marketing as well. It's the cheapest form of marketing. So that's another thing that you don't absolutely need it, but if you want to grow what you're doing, it's nice to have right away. Intake forms, again, aren't absolutely necessary to get started, but the most important part of treating a client is creating that relationship. And the more information you can get about that client before you first meet with them, the better. The more that you know about them, the more that they're going to trust you. It's going to show you that you have done your research, you've done your education, you're talking to them, that you understand what's going on with them already. So what I do is I send out my intake forms once I schedule them, and I ask that they, mine are all electronic, and I ask that they get them back to me prior to my first session. And we're all in different areas. So the intake forms are all going to be so different. So we're not going to put a sample on here just because they're all so different and they're not going to apply to everyone. So, but just what information would you want to know from your particular niche person, the person that you're going to treat, and put it on an intake form. And then policies. You don't need a policies and procedure manual. Don't worry about that. But there are some policies that you want in place before you start so that there's no miscommunication or gray areas. And some of the big ones that I would recommend is your fees, billing, and payment. So they should understand what they're going to be paying you when they come, and then how they're going to be paying you. Do they know that they pay you at the time of service after your session each time, or is it a package? So just be very clear on your payment and fee policy. And cancellation no-shows. Be firm on your policy there as well. I, in a cash-based practice, highly recommend having a fee for or a cancellation policy under 24 hours. I personally charge 50% of their session. A lot of people charge 100% of the session. So if they give me less than 24-hour cancellation, they pay for half their session, and people are okay with that. And not only that, but when you remind them of it, they're like, oh, I'll be there. You know, sometimes their minds change. Which, I mean, it's been a little more difficult with COVID, and living in Minnesota is a little difficult as well, because if the weather is atrocious, I'm not going to make someone pay because they can't get here. So there are some things, and with COVID right now, you know, you kind of got to take people's word for it that they're not feeling good. So it's a little bit more difficult now, but it's still good to have that policy. Have a communication policy. Some people want to be communicated in a certain way. You know, if you have a no text policy or just email, whatever that may be, have a policy for minors. And I personally am a pelvic health therapist, so I have a policy in there if people want to bring a witness or a chaperone. And then a scheduling policy, if you have certain parameters around that. I don't do online scheduling because I want to be able to, I don't want to have too many new clients where I can't get them in then. So I do have a scheduling policy. And then I also have a termination policy. I want people to know that I have the right to terminate our relationship for whatever reason it may be. It's listed in my practice policies. But that's one thing that a lot of people forget that I would include there. You want to have an out if it's just not a good client to therapist relationship. All right. So the next question is, can I provide coaching or run non-OT groups? Alicia, do you want to spearhead this one?
Yeah, so this is another common question. And again, I'm going to guide you to your Practice Act and, you know, make sure that you know that very well. Because first and foremost, that's what you're bound by. And what if you're saying you're an OT, if you're marketing yourself as an OT, you're saying I'm doing OT in any way, shape, or form, it's whatever your Practice Act says. You know, I do see a lot of people in pediatrics, especially if they're an OT assistant, or there's someone who is saying, hey, I just want to be a handwriting tutor. And, you know, okay, as an OT, if you see this picture of this kid with this wonky grasp and, you know, not so great handwriting, and, you know, are you going to just keep with your program? You know, if you're running a very strict handwriting that tears program, say, and not going to correct his grasp or to give him adapted paper or to do some other thing that you call skilled, you know, that's something that really is not okay. You're going to need the OT supervisor if you are an OTA. That is individual therapy that you are providing. So, you know, sometimes the motivation that people have for having these wellness services or wanting to call it coaching or call it something else. And those are things you can do, but sometimes people are trying to skirt the law and the licensure laws. And so you have to ask your motivation about that if you're asking that question. Hey, can I do this as a coach? Can I provide parent coaching? I want to be able to coach people in another state, for instance, through teletherapy and parents and give them guidance. Well, the question is, can you tie a specific diagnosis to what you're doing? Do you need some kind of information from them? Is it very individualized therapy? I mean, it's advice that you're giving. And, you know, if you don't know the difference between coaching and consultation and advice, that's a good thing to know. Coaching is really more question based. You know, it's not about it's guiding people to their own answers. It's not giving specific instructions and specific advice for a specific thing. You're doing therapy if you're doing that. So you are bound by those laws. And we are getting this OT compact. It's on its way, that some of the states are already getting involved with and signing up for, so that we will have some national coverage potential. But for now, you do need to know the laws in the states that you're working in or your clients are in. You also need to think about, the OT practice framework. Is it within our scope? There are some things that are within our scope that we can do as wellness services. And so those are things that you can still provide. Again, why can't you do that as an OT? Right? So if you can do it as an OT, lots of times that's better, because you can also market yourself that way. How are you learning about your clients? Do you feel like is it general information that you're just giving to everybody? If I'm doing coaching and I'm doing a group, say with a baby developmental group, to parents and telling them how, signs to look out for, whatever, that's very general information. That's not something that is specific to each person. If I start getting into, specific advice for each person, in your therapy. So you really have to think about those boundaries for yourself and make sure you're following those laws, and think about your liability. How are you differentiating between all your different services? And does your liability insurance cover what you're doing? How are you being found? A lot of people are going to look for you because they're looking for an OT. And it's great if you have some other services that you can offer too that might be more wellness based or might be more general based services. But, it's really important that you understand that, where your boundaries are, and that marketing is often better as an OT than as some general person. Just as a short little story on this one, I had a client come to me looking for she wanted some help guiding a document or plan for her child, who's a teenager, for when she goes to college, and that she thought it was really important that her child have a place to herself. And this child has a sensory sensitivity history, and she wanted me to basically sign off on her kid's plan, using the trust fund and all this other stuff. So there's potential legal stuff that I was going to have to get into. And we met with this girl, and it was like, you know what, we don't really have those sensory things anymore. I'd say she's just an introvert. And that's fine, if that's what she needs and that makes her, if that's something that they want to plan for. I can't say there's all these sensory things going on when I'm not seeing them and she's not reporting them. And so what happened is this parent came up with a document that said, had a bunch of different people's professionals' signatures on it. And what happened was there was somebody's name on there that called themselves a sensory specialist. And guys, that ticked me off. I went to this person's website, no licensure, nothing that really gave her credentials to call herself a sensory specialist. She'd been a teacher or something, I think, at one point. We don't want to be that person. We don't want to be that person. When someone's looking for some kind of specialized help, you want to make sure that our licenses are there for a reason. We have this great education. Let's make sure people know that. And, if you are providing something, if you're thinking about how, like a super bill, how people are going to pay, they may have more coverage and ability to pay you with their flexible spending account if you're calling your services OT. Now, can we still provide other things like general education? Of course, yes, this is still within our scope to do that. Can we do some coaching? Can we do handwriting groups? Can we do these things that maybe aren't as traditional as this one-on-one therapy situation? Yes, you can do that. You can do that as an OT. Just make sure your motivations aren't to skirt the law, your licensure laws, by doing these things.
And just an example of that, like some people will come to me and it's like, can I do these alternative, like they're held back by using alternative methods of treatment. So an example that I use often is there's a difference for me using guided meditation to downregulate the nervous system for someone who has pelvic floor tension or high tone than it is using guided meditation in a general group setting. So if I want to offer guided meditation groups in my practice, I can do that. It's not a skilled service. It's general. It's just a general meditation, guided meditation. But guided meditation is also a toolbox. You can use it within a skilled treatment session, or Reiki, or visualization, or myofascial release. You know, a lot of those alternative treatment methods. Those are all within our scope of practice. They are tools in your toolbox, like any other treatment modality, and they are supported by our by the AOTA. So hopefully that answers any of those questions. So next, what is a business entity? A lot of people have questions on this, and Alicia is going to start it out. But again, we are not attorneys and we're not accountants, but we're going to share with you what we know.
Right. And this is all very specific to your own situation, much of it, and what's going to be best for you. So, you know, take a little bit with a grain of salt with some of this stuff, because you're going to probably have to seek out your own answers with professionals in these areas, as far as, especially your accountant, possibly an attorney. Now, a sole proprietor is someone that is just like an independent contractor. You just work, you're your business, and your personal assets are not separate from your business. Now, as a sole proprietor, this is what I did when I started school contracts. I just contracted myself to whatever the schools were. I didn't have a specific LLC or anything that it didn't even have a business name. It was just me. That was a sole proprietorship. Well, later I added my business name, and that became what was, what was on my contracts. So a sole proprietor, I was still a sole proprietor, but I just registered my business name. So when I first started seeing clients and first opened my practice, that's what I did. Later, I switched to a professional limited liability company. So limited liability company is something that separates you from your business. And so if somebody were going to sue you as a sole proprietor, they can take your house, or they can, go after those personal assets. If you have an LLC, it separates those things out. Now, a professional LLC is when you have you're going through your state board, your OT board, to set up your practice and to set up your limited liability company. One of the reasons why you might want, first of all, some states might require the PLLC. They might require that's what you're going to do. And it really depends on what your vision is for your business and what makes the most sense for you. For instance, with a PLLC, you may not be able to supervise other disciplines like physical therapists or speech therapists. So in both those situations, they're basically the same, LLC and PLLC, except one goes through your state board. I will say here in North Carolina, it's a lot cheaper to go through the PLLC. I pay $25 a year for that. It's a couple $100s a year for the LLC. But there are reasons why you might want one or the other.
And not only with, do some of these offer you different legal protection or liability protection per se, but it also is the way that the government can understand what sort of business you are, and that's how you're taxed. So like with a sole proprietorship, there is really no difference. Everything runs in through your personal tax. So you just use a Schedule C and a standard 1040 form. There is no separation. But you also have full legal responsibility. So the benefits of it there's unlimited liability. So all the liability is yours. So if something happens, they can take everything. So there's things to think about with that sole proprietor. And with the LLC, it's kind of a nice combination of corporation and sole proprietorship. So in an LLC, you can decide how you want to be taxed. So you can be taxed as a sole proprietorship or as a corporation or just as a LLC. And what that means is it's a pass-through taxation. So you can still have an LLC and it goes right into your personal tax return. So you file it all together, but you have the limited liability of a corporation. So it's kind of a combination of the two. The one con with a LLC is that you cannot pay yourself wages. So essentially you are taxed on everything you bring into your company. Okay, you take member draws, but you still have to pay that employment tax on 100% of your profit in your business. where when you start to have a certain amount of profit in your business, you might want to look into doing a corporation, because then you can save that employment tax, which we're not going to get into that today because this is about starting your business. And it's something that we'll get into dive deeper into further trainings or programs. But just so you know that there are other ways to be taxed out there with corporations as well.
And generally, it's pretty easy to set up an LLC or PLLC and to do that yourself. So some people think they have to go through an attorney, and some states do make it more complicated, and it may be worth going through an attorney to do that. But I did it myself. It was very easy. The state gives a lot of guidance on how to do that. I do want to just mention something about PLLCs that was super confusing. That is that most state boards, when they talk about setting up your business through the PLLC, they call it a corporation, and it can be really confusing when you're an LLC and you're like, but I'm not a corporation. I don't really understand what that means. And you think you're going to have some big entity or incorporate or do some other kind of tax structure for your business. But generally, if they say corporation, it means that you're having an LLC or PLLC or something like that. So, and just, I have to say this again about your Practice Act. Like, it's something that we all really should read probably annually, because there's things that come up in ways we change our practices. But absolutely, please make sure that you are reading that just to get started in your business. There's things that you may not realize are really important to do. For instance, here in North Carolina, I have to put my license number on any of my advertising. So there's things like that you may not realize that you're thinking about that you have to do. I don't know how often people get caught not doing those kind of things and how much that really matters, but I like to follow the law. I don't want to lose my license or get dinged for something stupid like that. So.
And not only that, but when you have a LLC or PLLC, you need to renew that every year, or it needs to be renewed. That's one thing. I had my attorney set it up, and I never heard a word after that and did not realize it had to be renewed, and it wasn't something he was taking care of. So I learned that the hard way. Don't let that happen to you. So make sure you are renewing that whatever your renewal period is. And also look how long it takes to get your articles of organization. Some states take over a month to get. So just make sure to look into that.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
All right. So what insurance do I need to get started? You absolutely need professional liability or malpractice insurance. They're one and the same. This is absolutely important. Reason being is it's required and for a licensure, but also that a client can make an allegation towards you at any time, whether you did something or not. And it can be negligence, breach of contract, malpractice, non-performance, or either failure to render services. Which can leave you with a lot of out-of-pocket expenses, such as attorney fees, court costs, licensing board issues. So I always say CYA, cover your bum. And most policies are 12-month policies, and they have them for employed and self-employed. So some people ask, okay, if I have a side hustle and I'm employed and I have malpractice there, do I need my own? Yes, you should have your own. Even the policies that big corporations have, sometimes are limited. So it's helpful to know what those are. And I have mine through Pro Liability Mercer through AOTA, which is a really good deal for OTs. And what they recommend is if you are working at least over 20 hours between the two at your employer and in your side hustle, your business, they recommend you get the self-employed full-time coverage. And most standard coverages are $1 million, and most offer small group policies too. So if you are an owner of your business and you have an employee or have independent contractors, most policies have where they'll cover the small business or the small group. An example of a claim could be maybe a client claimed they were burnt from a hot pack. I know a lot of people don't use hot packs anymore, or maybe you accidentally shared a picture on social media without written consent. Those are just some examples of allegations that people could make. So general business liability, also known as commercial general business liability, is a layer of protection for injury or damages to your property that by anyone associated with your business may have caused. So it could have been another customer that caused the issue, but it still happened on your property. It covers your physical location, a possible data breach, different from HIPAA ones, maybe usernames or passwords or misrepresentation during advertising. Some examples of this are, say you go into a person's home that you've started a side hustle, and you see them in their home, and you leave your therapy bag on the floor and someone gets up and trips on it. You want that general liability to cover you. Or someone walks into your brick and mortar and there's snow that melts it on the floor and someone slips and was injured or broke a hip. Those are examples of that. So you want both.
And you might also need, for your professional liability, you might need a liability writer. So I have pro liability as well through Mercer, and I just had to call them and say, I'm doing some education and I want to make sure I'm covered for that. So that's what the professional liability writer is. If you are doing some kind of consulting or webinars or trainings and that kind of thing. So if you gave a workshop and then somebody hurt themselves doing what you recommended or suggested that people do in your presentation, and then they could potentially sue you for that. So you want to make sure that you are covered with that. I'm gonna say it was like $50 a year or something like that. Yeah. Another thing to think about is workers' compensation. So it's really different from state to state. And here in North Carolina, if there's 3 people working within the business, doesn't matter if they're working 1 hour a week or 20 hours a week or 40 hours a week. If you have 3 people, including yourself, then you have to have workers' compensation. Now, this could vary by your business structure. Some people, if you have 1 employee, you have to have it. If you are just yourself, you probably don't, but look at your state, because it really does vary a lot. Some states only have workers' compensation through the state. So some are a combination of state or commercial insurance, and some are administered through the state. And I found a document when I was researching this a little more too, that had it spelled out state by state. So it was just a general Google search. So you might be able to find that pretty easily yourself too. And you can even get it for yourself. I had no idea when I was working for myself, before I ever hired any employees, that I could get workers' compensation just to cover myself. And I was working in schools, and kids can be rough. If you're working with a teenager and they get violent, you can really get hurt. I decided, or if you're working with somebody and you have to help transfer them, you could get hurt. The school wouldn't be covering anything. They may have created an unsafe situation and I could potentially sue them for that, but that does not help me in the meantime to get the care that I need and coverage I need. So you can, as a sole proprietor, even you can just get workers' compensation for yourself if that's something that you're interested in. So it's something to consider.
There's a couple questions along some of these topics that I thought we would just address here.
Okay.
Carrie Stenstrom asks, the termination policy, do you specify why and what the grounds for that? So I'm just going to read you what's in mine. It's pretty vague, but you just want to have something in there that you have a way out. So termination, I put mine says ending relationships can be difficult. Therefore, it is important to have a termination process in order to achieve some closure. I may terminate treatment after appropriate discussion with you and a termination process if I determine that the treatment is not being effectively used or if you are in default on payment. I will not terminate the therapeutic relationship without first discussing and exploring the reasons and purpose for terminating. If treatment is terminated for any reason or you request another provider, I will provide you with a list of qualified therapists to treat you. You may also choose someone on your own or from another referral source. So that's just my general disclosure. And then there was also a couple other questions here. So in regards to setting fees, I know with insurance, you have certain fees per CPT code. For cash-based business, do you just set a general fee per session regardless of what service you provide? Yes, I have a blanket fee for all my CPT codes, and that's a whole separate training on how to set your rates and how to get to the price per CPT code. You don't just want to throw something out there. You want to make sure you're getting paid what you need per session in order to make a profit to pay yourself and for the business. So, but all my CPT codes essentially are the same from eval to everything that I charge.
And we will be doing, we'll get to this in just a minute, but we have some other trainings coming up that we'll be getting to some of those things too. So coming up next month.
And then there's another question here from Hannah. If you have a client who has Medicare, do you have the option to accept cash pay or do you have to bill? And I forgot to say that earlier, didn't I? When I was talking about you can treat who you want, there are limitations with Medicare and Medicaid clients when you are cash pay. So you are restricted in, you can't by law necessarily charge a Medicare or Medicaid client cash for something that may be covered somewhere else by their insurance. So there are different workarounds. Like I had a woman who needed women's health services, but the closest place for them to go was a 45-minute drive. Well, that person didn't drive anymore, but was kitty corner from my practice and was able to walk over. So in that instance, it wasn't available to her, and therefore she could waive her right on that Medicare option that she had to write out that this is why I'm doing this, and then we were able to do it. So if it's a billable service that can be provided to that patient somewhere else, that is the written in law. I know there are some, it's within legislature right now to overturn that, but right now that's the law. Alicia, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Just as far as Medicaid goes, that also varies by state. So some states you can it's fine to see Medicaid clients and accept cash. Others, it's never okay. So it's one of those things you're probably gonna have to call the Medicaid office and find out for sure for wherever you are.
And then there was another question here from Denny. Interested in hearing about Erin's specialties, not because I can do it. Not real sure what the question is there, Denny. So if you can clarify what you're wanting there, that would be fabulous. Okay, perfect. So we'll move on and we'll have another chance for questions.
Okay.
All right, so why now? Why start your business now? Now more than ever, people are needing us and they are seeking therapy. They need help. There is more, with all the stuff going on in the world right now, there's more mental health crisis. There's anxiety, there's pain. And we know that pain is brought on by increased stress and anxiety. It's at an all-time high. Not only that, but different routines. People are working from home. They're sitting in kitchen dining room chairs. They don't have good work setups. The kids are at home. Some of these kids got a lot of support from the school systems, and now parents are struggling with providing maybe sensory integration or trying to manage challenging behaviors. So people need us. And not only that, but some people want to get out of the house, other people don't want to get out of the house. So they'd love to do telehealth or maybe have you come to their house or come to a smaller, more controlled environment. And then the other one is, if you're an employee, you're at the mercy of others. People always refer to having a job as security. Well, when you really think of it, is it security when you have no control? One of my coaches always told me, he's like, Erin, you've been on the chopping block more than once. You just weren't aware of it. So that was what stuck in the back of my head, is like, oh, I'm not secure here. But in your own practice, you are secure. No one can take your business away from it. No one can fire you. And the only person that will look out for you is you. So, and not only that, but with COVID right now, people are being laid off and people are losing their jobs. So the best security you can have is by being your own boss. And you don't need all the answers to start. So why wait to do what you love and to live the life you desire? Some people just like, they don't have it all figured out, and that's okay. You can take action on what you do know. And we've given you some very basic steps here to start. And even if there are bits and pieces that you are sure of, that you are totally confident and feel right to you, focus on those instead of waiting until the entire picture is figured out. Work with the people you want to work with now. Life is short. We don't want that going to work dread. Your people will pay cash for you if you solve their problems or prevent a problem that they fear, if you're into prevention and wellness. And being an entrepreneur is definitely not for everyone. It's not easy, but it's not complicated. It is hard work and you need to be dedicated and consistent, but it's not complicated. And if you know that freedom of working for yourself is something that you want, if you enjoy helping other people, and maybe you love kids, start with those pieces and act on them. I love Jen Sincero. She's one of my favorite authors. And
Me too.
And she says, taking action leads to answers. Mulling ideas around in your head forever leads to indecision and grouchiness. And it's so true. I can speak for this as I struggle with decisions. And Kara was on this journey with me when I was trying to quit my job and mulling it over. And it made me very unhappy. And I felt amazing once I quit and went all in. It was holding me back. So I'm not telling you to go all in. You have to follow your plan and what's best for you, but just start is what my message is there. All right. So,
I love what you said about the work dread. And I can't even remember until telehealth, until I had to start telehealth, and it was a completely new thing and I had no idea what I was doing. There was one Sunday where I just could not look forward to work. Other than that, I couldn't remember a time where I was dreading coming to work. I absolutely do not remember. It's been absolutely years. So
that's awesome. And that's what you want. That's what life's about. We spent most of our hours in our day working. So Denny, I just want to touch base about my specialties. So most of my experiences with myofascial release. I also do Reiki, subtle energy, visceral mobilization, hypopressives or low pressure fitness. You're putting me on the spot on everything that I do now. I do women's health. I'm a pelvic floor therapist, so I do pelvic floor work. I treat incontinence, prolapse, postpartum, prenatal, pregnant women, chronic pain. So those are the big, mind body therapy. Those are the biggest things. Those are my specialties. Hopefully that helps. All right, so what is next?
All right, so we do have a couple of other webinars coming up next month. One, we're going to go over insurance basics for a cash-based practice. So even though you're not taking insurance, there's some things that are helpful to know about some of the rules.
And we'll talk a little bit about MPI numbers there, fees, different things like that.
Right, and how to fill out a super bill and help your clients get reimbursed. We'll also be doing one on money mindset. This is such a huge one for any kind of practice owner, not just for cash practices, but definitely understanding some of the finances and what to charge and that kind of thing. And then we're also starting in January, we're starting a cash-based therapy business builder program. So this is to walk you through all the steps, taking action with confidence, knowing all these things that you need to do. And we touched on some of them today, but we get into more details. There's a lot of other things that we're not talking about today that you are really helpful to know to make sure that you are getting all the things that you need to do, crossing all your T's and dotting all your I's, and getting everything started just completely confidently. Make sure you're not missing out on anything important that you need to do to start your business. We are also going to be addressing some of those things that help you become efficient and effective, like setting up your systems. And there's things like your logo and your website and all these other things, all these details that can be really daunting when you're just starting. And so having a step-by-step process to do that can be really helpful for you. And making sure that you are getting getting started on the right foot, because there's a lot of things I think both of us have probably learned the hard way.
Yeah.
There's definitely some things I wish I would have loved to have a program like that, or even webinars like this that could help me get started, because Google was my friend. That's how I learned most of what I've learned and how to start a business. And it's hours of research to do some of these things, to figure out what you need to do. For some very basic stuff, and a lot of things I didn't know, and some of it honestly I've not even that long ago that I learned them. Things like your mindset, understanding how valuable you are and not underselling yourself, will help you with sharing your skills with people, and understanding how to get the word out about who you are and what you offer, and all these wonderful things that you do as a therapist, and really helping you meet your vision.
So the goal of phase one is to, when you're done with phase one in the program, you should be able to be up and running with your business. The program is going to be 12 weeks long, and it is the first 4 weeks you should have your business and be able to say yes to your first client. The whole point of this program is to be able to say yes to that person said, hey, can you treat me on the side? Or say you finish up with a client and they want to keep working with you. Great, this is a perfect opportunity for that. And phase two is more so becoming more efficient with the finances, making those sales, creating offers and making sales, selling those clients to be those people into becoming your clients. And then that third phase is really marketing. How do you market, and how do you use your clients to help you market? So there's a lot of more in-depth information. It's step-by-step accountability that we take you through and hold you accountable. So you, and some of you have your own accountability or have a really good self-discipline and self-accountability, but other people's not so much. And I know for me, I've always had a coach because I need that accountability, because there weren't programs like this out there when we started. Our first run of this is going to start in January, and it is going to be limited to, we're saying capping it to 12 people. Alicia, you're going to post a link, right?
Yeah.
Okay. We're capping it to 12 people. So if you are seriously interested, and I'm going to tell you kind of who this is for and who it's not for, because we only want people who are serious about this in this beta program. And you're not going to put any money down today, but we just please apply if you're serious. The program is for you if you want to have or have had the thought of feeling in your heart of starting your own practice, but just don't know where to begin or need the help, the step-by-step process and accountability to start. You want to say yes when someone asks if you can see them privately or on the side. You want to make sure you're legit legally, clinically, and financially. You want to be challenged and an avenue to grow personally and professionally, but you're also willing to put in the work, time, dedication, and consistency, and you're willing to be uncomfortable. You want to provide the most valuable individualized care for your clients. You want professional, financial, and personal independence and autonomy. You want job security. The only person, like I said earlier, the only person that you can truly certainly depend on is yourself. And who this program is not for. You're not an action taker. So action takers are the money makers. If you create a business, but you're afraid to tell people about it, you're not going to succeed. So you need to take action. We need, if you're going to be in business, we want you to be successful. We don't want you to go into business and not get out of it what you want to. If you're looking for a get rich quick fix, not this type of business. You're not willing to make sacrifices. You're not willing to leave your comfort zone, and you're not willing to ask for help, support, and advice. Those are people that this program is not for. And what you're going to get in this program is accountability. There's a private Facebook group for daily support and questions and answers. Daily, we will be looking at this Facebook group and answering your questions. And we'll also you'll have an individualized Trello board to help you with the step-by-step phase in the phases, and making sure you're getting the things done in the right sequence. And this may vary a little bit, but that's why we'll customize it with you. There will be monthly group coaching via Zoom. So the group will be coached together live once a month. And so there'll be a total of 4 of those. You'll get a 1-year next level membership to the Next Level Visionary membership, which is packed full of trainings and another Facebook group if you want to partake in. There's blog posts. There's so much rich information within that platform as well, which is what this webinar is through. And then you'll have a cash-based practice policy and procedure manual. You'll have a My Business Journal and worksheets for you to take action and to keep records of the things that you're doing. You'll have a resource library. So obviously people are in a lot of different states and we can't keep those resources for everyone, but we can give you resources of where to look for things. And when you're in a cash-based practice or any practice, you're going to customize it to you. So Alicia and I use for our EMR, we use Simple Practice. Everyone might not want to use Simple Practice. So we'll have resource libraries of the different things out there for different things like internet faxing and EMRs, so on and so forth. There will be sample templates for a lot of the different things we talked about. Some of the things that Alicia and I use and other people that we've coached with or worked with have used. And then there'll also be 12 recorded trainings within these phases. There'll be 4 trainings in each of the phases that will be yours for a lifetime, including the updated versions. And this is our first beta session. So what we ask for you at the discounted rate is that you'll give a testimonial or review or feedback at the end of it. So at the end of that 12 weeks, we'd love to get your feedback so we can make it the best program for others out there who want to live out their dreams and start their business in whatever form that looks like. Is it a side hustle or is it something you want to do full time? And the cost of it is $24.97. And like I said, that is not due today and there's no deposit today. We just want to get people's interest prior to launching because we're only going to allow 12 people in. And if you look in the chat, the link to the Google form is in there. Anything else you want to add to that, Alicia, before we answer the rest of the questions?
No, I think you covered everything. I think it's going to be a really great program, and there's just so much. I'm really excited about it because there's just so many details and so many things you wouldn't even think about.
Yeah, and really Alicia and I's mission is to help you launch a solo cash-based practice, and it may be solo to start, so you can have that professional, financial, and personal independence and autonomy that we've gained. And you're going to have it with a lot less headache, struggle, and stress because most of the answers are out there. Granted, there are a lot of gray areas, which there's nothing we can do about. Practice Acts are gray and they're meant to be gray. It's for self-interpretation. So there are some things that we're not going to be able to answer, but we're going to be able to guide you the best we can without having to spend hours on Google. Okay.
I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing so I don't have so many things in my way. And I think there's a few questions that might have come up in the Q&A.
Yeah, so Tammy, so I wanted to implement a home safety assessment type visit, and I'm assuming the majority of those needing it would be Medicare age clients. Would just that assessment be billable to Medicare, or would it be cash pay type situation? Where is the line on the situation? Is it therapy if I'm making equipment recommendations? I'm an outpatient hand therapist, but have a serious desire to help people be safe in their home environment. Usually in that situation, Kara, do you want?
Yeah, so Tammy, we have actually webinars on home safety and home modifications. One great resource right off the top of my head to send you to is AOTA actually published an article that came out in January about this, about home modification and home safety and what should be billable to Medicare and so forth. We really promote the hybrid practice approach where you do a combination of, billing Medicare Part B, cash, private pay, because in some instances it is going to be Medicare, in some instances it's going to be cash based. And we do have some webinars on this topic. So there are going to be adults that might need a home, or that might want a home safety assessment, but it's not skilled and medically necessary. So you could do private pay for those clients. But there's also clients that need a home safety assessment because of a situation that would require or would benefit from skilled therapy and could be billed under Medicare Part B. So it's not a clear-cut answer. And the best solution is doing the hybrid approach where you can, make that judgment. And we actually have a home-based or a home modification and safety business builder program, just because that world is huge and there's lots of misinformation out there. And so we have a therapist that does training on all of that and has like a grid on helping you figure out what's billable or what's private pay, what can you bill to insurance and so forth. So, but I can, if you want to message me, I'll get you that AOTA article because that's a good article too. And we're happy that AOTA, came out and pushed that because, there's some people that we do need to bill Medicare, but there's plenty of people out there that you could do private pay home mods too. If they're, just with our older population, the homes are not set up to be convenient, safe, and accessible for them.
All right, there's a few more questions. Yes, this recording will be available as long as you register. You'll get the link to the recording. Kylie, are you able to enforce the cancellation fee with Medicaid, Medicare clients? I don't see Medicare or Medicaid clients, so it's not something that I've had to deal with. Kara, I'm assuming you cannot when they're insurance covered because
you
can't charge the cash. So
no.
Yeah, I can't with Medicaid either. Yeah.
And that may go with all insurances. If you're, if you're contracting with any insurances, I'm assuming you're not going to be able to do that. So when my client in a all cash practice fills out their intake form, they put their credit card on file because they read the policies. And so I always have their credit card stored in my EMR, and that's how my practice works. And that's my billing and payment policy. 2 questions. Do you put both medical and treatment diagnosis on doctor referrals or just the treatment codes that you are treating? Well, we cannot diagnose them, so we cannot put their diagnosis on there. So it would just be your treatment codes and what you're treating.
Right.
And can you include your treatment diagnosis on a Super Bowl without having a doctor's signature on a referral that also includes the diagnosis? Does that make sense? Yes. You put your treatment diagnosis on there, and if they have a medical diagnosis, you can add it on there if you got a physician's referral. But no, you put your treatment diagnosis on there because your ICD-10 codes and then your CPT codes.
And I do this as a patient of a physical therapist, and I don't have no referrals from my doctor. My insurance just covers everything through my out-of-network benefits. So I have experience from that end as well, and it's been very easy.
And I may have missed it, but do you go over how offering coaching services alongside an OT Medicare provider business? Do you guys want to touch on that again?
I think the main thing to be aware of is that it's, it might need to be a separate service, and you might have to have you may need to separate into 2 businesses to do that. It can be kind of sticky if you are trying to do coaching with people who have to use Medicare benefits. And so it might be better to have those things as 2 separate entities.
And I guess I'm curious on what the coaching is referred to. You just have to look at, is it a skilled service? If it's a skilled service, you have to run it through your OT through whatever insurance they're using. If it's not a skilled service, you can provide that as a cash covered service.
Right. Right. If you were doing like exercise, like generic exercise groups or something, that's something you could probably provide. Am I right? I don't do Medicare, but I think that's the kind of thing that you could potentially, if it's not a skilled thing, that you could potentially provide. But it really depends on
Yeah, because I know, people have Facebook groups where they do a daily exercise. If you're doing something general, not diagnosis specific, you're not solving a problem specifically for someone, that's different. But if it's something that should be skilled, then that's different as well. So if that person really has ailments going on and should be seen as it should be a skilled service, then that's our duty to treat them that way. Do you guys primarily use super bills versus cash only? How do you explain the reimbursements if different than what was paid? I don't. I offer them a super bill if they choose. They pay me cash at the time of service. They get an automatic super bill at the end of the month through my EMR. And there are paper versions too. We have paper versions that we give to people as templates within our program. And they have to decipher that. What we get paid and what they get paid, it doesn't matter. They pay us what our fees are, and what they get reimbursed is up to them and the insurance company. So I always ask them, I said, make sure you call your insurance company so you are fully informed before you start the process. So,
right. And direct them to their out-of-network benefits, because that's the key that they need. Those are different than their in-network benefits. And so they really need to understand that difference. And so that's one of the things that we can tell our clients when they call the insurance company. And that there's an allowable amount that they're going to have, that the insurance is only going to provide this allowable amount. And so it's not going to be their whole fee.
okay. Did we get them all?
Carrie's asking in the cash-based practice program, the Therapy Business Builder, will we be addressing setting up online services versus brick and mortar, or is it more specific for brick and mortar? It's for either. It's for whichever one you need. We're not getting. It's however you need the support. So most of the things that we're going to be going over are applicable to both. They are all applicable to both. So if you have specific questions for from a home-based perspective or community-based kind of therapy versus a brick and mortar, we both have brick and mortar experience, which can be helpful, but I also do home-based, in schools and community things. So we have the experience to help you with either one. So.
And maybe with online services, are you thinking of developing like an online program, or if you can be a bit more specific, that would be helpful, but and what support you're looking for in that. A business is a business, and your entity and your marketing, it all really is the same no matter where. But if you want specifically on how to develop that and set that up, so maybe just a little bit more specifics would be helpful.
Yeah, if you're talking teletherapy and providing services to people, that way, certainly teletherapy would fit under this. If you're looking at selling like a teachers pay teachers sort of site for yourself, that kind of thing, where you're selling digital products, that's not really what this is for. This is more for clients. If that answered. Online and telehealth. Okay. Virtual group support. Yeah. Yep.
What is a super bill? A super bill is a bill with multiple visits on it that they can use to submit to get reimbursed from their insurance. So I give them an itemized and coded bill, super bill, at the end of the month that they use to submit to their insurance to get reimbursed directly from their insurance.
It's a fancy way to say insurance receipt, or
yeah,
a weird way to say it, I guess. It's not really that fancy. So Carrie, yeah, she said that online, she means telehealth. So virtual support, those are things that we would cover. Yes.
Yeah. And does a therapist need to be licensed in other states if doing online services? It depends what you mean by online services. If you are building a general online program, no, that is giving people general education. If you are doing telehealth, yes. If you're offering a skilled service in another state, yes, you need to be licensed. And that's where that OT com comes in, where they're trying to give us the ability to cross state lines with a single license. And that's in the works.
Right. And I think when COVID came, some things were relaxed. Some states kind of scrambled and got some stuff together so that there is some reciprocity, but it really varies from state to state. So you have to look at the Practice Act in the state that you're in and the one where your clients are to be able to answer that for teletherapy.
Is a super bill an insurance explanation of benefits? No. A super bill is a coded receipt that we give them that they can submit to their insurance to get reimbursed. So, and then once the insurance processes that, then the client would get a EOB, an explanation of benefits. But none of that goes through us. So we provide the bill to them and the rest is on their part. Can I, oops.
I'm looking at her.
Josephine Jarvis, did you see that question?
I was in the Q&A, so I hadn't got back to that side yet. So your question is, sorry. Offering both medical and educationally relevant services.
So is this recording available for viewing? Missed the beginning. Thoughts on offering both medical and educationally relevant services. For example, I develop assistive technology systems for adolescents, youth, adults relevant to success in school and developing self-management of their medical, mental health needs, while also being in high school, college, middle school. I would prefer to document these services all in one process.
So you're thinking that you could have a business where you're supporting a child or a young adult in a school setting and in a private practice setting. Is that what you mean? If it's both, there's potential for that. Okay, private practice, cash base. I mean, I guess I'm not exactly sure. If it's educationally relevant, then yes, that's something that you could provide. Assistive technology is totally appropriate to address in a private practice setting, even if it is educationally relevant. It depends how, as far as whether the super bill is needed. And yeah, I mean, you have to still, it depends how you document is really what it comes down to. So if you are going to have, if it's educationally relevant, sometimes it's still medically relevant too, right? So it's kind of hard to separate those two things out. So if you're thinking assistive technology for writing, for instance, I mean, I've had success in working with insurance clients and getting that reimbursed. So I would think that would be fine. But I really think it's about documenting in a way that it's probably a bigger question than we can really answer here more specifically, but I think it's really in how you document your services.
Yeah, and it's really hard unless we know all the ins and outs of your business to give you the exact advice. And that's what the program is for. So we can take those ideas and make them tailored to what is legal and what you really your dreams are. So just having the little parts it's difficult to do.
Yeah.
All right, did we get all the links in the chat? I did see someone posted that AOTA document regarding direct access too, so thank you for that. And
I don't think that made it to everybody though, so.
Oh, do you want to?
Yeah, I'll get it, and I think she just sent it to us. I wasn't totally sure if you had access if you weren't a member, so we'll see if this comes through for you all. Thank you, Erin, for sharing that. I actually did not share because I didn't think everyone would have access to it if you weren't a member, but hopefully it'll come up for you.
And again, it is quite vague still, even what they have in there. But you guys got to remember, practice acts are meant to be vague. They're meant to be gray for self-interpretation, and they'll tell you that right if you call them. So sometimes it's better to self-interpret, cover your butt, and just go with it. Sometimes it's
go to the Next Level OT website too, and we have a webinars on this exact topic. So, and Sue Doyle leads those on the home mods and the private pay versus Medicare. And Sue Doyle leads those, and she's actually, or we've actually been talking with AOTA on these different topics. So she has good information on it.
On what piece?
The whole modification with this AOTA. Oh, you're talking about the AOTA article. I thought you were sharing the link on the home mods link because someone just reached out to me for that one. Shoot, I'll send that one.
No, it was about the direct access per state.
Never mind, sorry.
No problem. So if no one else has questions, I think we'll sign off. Do you want to put the link in one more time for anyone who is interested in the cash-based program? It's really geared for you to be able to say yes to working with people on the side. You can work it as a side hustle or whatever your desires and dreams are. And it's really just to give you guys the support and the resources to start your dream. So, and we'd love to, that's a passion of ours, is to see more professionals out there working for themselves and treating the clients the way that they deserve to be treated. And yeah, just to see the clients that you love to work with is why I love coming to work, is because I get to choose who I see, and I love that. So thank you all for coming tonight. I really appreciate everyone that came and all the awesome questions. And yeah, I'm looking forward to our next one on December 7th, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was trying to get that link for you guys. There it is. For our cash-based thing. I just popped it in there. Great. Well, thank you everyone for being here. We really appreciate it.
All right. Happy Thanksgiving, and we will see you all in December.
Oh, I just saw a quick question I want to answer real quick. This is not something that is that you could get for CEUs. This is just for your information. Okay. All right.
All right.